National parks are a source of enjoyment for many Americans. They offer beautiful places to explore and reconnect with nature. But unfortunately, sometimes there's a dark side to these historic places. Since the National Park Service was established in 1916, more than 1,000 visitors have disappeared while visiting a park, often without a trace. And because there is no federal level database tracking how many people have gone missing from these federal lands, it's very difficult to pin down an exact number of missing people. Former police detective and author of the Missing 411 series and documentary, David Paulides, began to investigate the missing persons cold cases involving the National Park Service after a local ranger expressed his concern to him involving the missing persons. David Paulides is also a cryptozoologist and author of books arguing the existence of Bigfoot. Upon investigating, he noticed that the National Park Service doesn't keep extensive records on missing persons. It instead leaves the job to local law enforcement to track and solve the disappearances. As Paulides examined the endless reports and cold case files, he noticed disturbing trends. In some cases, an easy answer was available: death by falling, an animal attack, exposure to the elements, or illness. But there were some stories that Paulides thought defied simple explanation. Some people were eventually found, but at much higher elevations than when they first disappeared. In one such case, a toddler was found 12 miles away from where he first vanished, on a journey that would have had this 2-year-old traversing 2 mountain ranges and crossing over fences and through creeks. These mysterious circumstances had led some to theorize that these abductions were made by Bigfoot. People seemingly vanished into thin air. They were there 1 minute and gone the next. Other stories involve tracking dogs that were brought in that either couldn't or wouldn't hunt for the missing persons. Still, other disappearances seem to recur more frequently near areas heavy with boulders or close to berry patches. It's a well-known fact that dogs don't like Bigfoot and persistently avoid areas where he is present. There have also been numerous reports of dogs being found killed in areas where Bigfoot is present. As for berry patches, there are also several documented reports of people crossing paths with Bigfoot in and around berry bushes. As the creature moves from one regional habitat to another, eating seasonal nuts, berries, and fruits. In 1924, a Canadian prospector and avid woodsman, Albert Osman, reported that he was abducted by a Sasquatch and held captive for 6 days. Osman described that he was abducted and taken to higher elevations after a 3-hour trek over mountain terrain. In 1871, a girl named Seraphina Long claimed that a Sasquatch came out of the woods surrounding the mountain and snagged her up, carrying her away into the deep woods. In 1962, an Ohio woman claimed to have been kidnapped by a group of Bigfoot after they have repeatedly visited her family home when she was only 12 years old. The girl claimed that she was taken far away from her home by the creatures. She remembers walking within a cavern or a cave in which water was dripping from roots emerging from the ground above. She described the creatures. His hair was long and about the same texture as mine, as I recall. The hair on all of them was about the same shade of brown, like the color of a decomposed wood layer in the forest. I could see the skin around his eyes that was tan looking, and that there was facial hair. It was more sparse with glimpses of skin showing through that area as well. I couldn't make out a neck. His shoulders were very broad, though I did see his collarbone on one side which looked thick compared to humans. He was muscular and heavily built, but in no way fat. A more recent case is that of 48-year-old Jason Richardson, who was on a hike in Northern California, in South Lake Tahoe, at Mount Talek. At one point during his trip, he claims that he heard guttural sounds reminiscent of a human baby voice. Thinking that it was perhaps a real baby left out alone in the wilderness, he rushed to where he had heard the noise and then claims that he lost consciousness after being whacked over the head, which was later evident by the blood he found leaking from the back of his head. When he woke up, he says his head was bloodied and hurt badly, and that he found himself in some sort of cavern. Near him were two Bigfoot-like creatures which seemed to be communicating in a series of guttural grunts which sounded strikingly similar to what he had heard before he lost consciousness. Richardson claimed that the creatures were somewhat human-looking and were covered with thick hair with feet that were even hairier. They stood around 8 to 10 feet in height. In the 1800s, there have been several newspaper reports of a wild man coming down from the mountains trying to abduct women and children. So in the case of the unexplained disappearances of people within the America's national wildlife parks, yes, it is totally possible that Bigfoot may be responsible for some of the unexplained disappearances. There is now much documented history on Bigfoot's behavioral patterns, past and present, that have shown us that this is indeed a very plausible explanation. Yosemite National Park has had the largest numbers of visitors go missing, between 40 and 45 cases since the National Park Service was established in 1916. Don't forget to watch, like, and share Bigfoot in the Forest on all your social media. Bigfoot in the Forest can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, and Reddit.